Pandemonium Reigns.
Pandemonium Reigns podcast. What is up? It's your boy Mike. I'm back. Apologies for low content from me following Florida, previewing Alabama. Last week just wasn't going to have it. But you can make sure I've adapted. I've grown. Trying to give a 6-3 effort. Trying to think of puns and dumb jokes that I can use right there. But the main thing is that the Vols beat Alabama again, obviously. And just want to give my thoughts and share my 2 cents. Really more sense than that because of the amount of thoughts in my head. 2 cents is probably all it's worth. But there's going to be much more than 2 little thoughts come out of this from me. Really excited to talk about it. Can't believe we're here. Just a win like this, and it did the same thing 2 years ago. And really, even all of the good things through Heupel's era just take me back to how bad it was when he started. Not the product on the field, but again, the hand he was dealt was so poor. Obviously, he and his staff and his players have taken a huge, they've done so much heavy lifting. They've been just carrying the load in terms of making sure we forget about that, making sure we're not back in that shape. All the good. But again, when we win games like this, rivalry games, no matter where they stand right now, Florida, Alabama, all the good from this era, it just takes me back to the hand that he was dealt, and it was a lot of poop in that deck. It was thin in terms of talent and just bodies. And again, I think you could say that the miraculous turnaround continues, that we're seeing that things were not a flash in the pan, that this is a coach, and Dan talked a lot about identity. I've got like 6 pages of notes, or 6 lines of notes on a page for identity, because we are someone different now, but we're still so dangerous and still have a really high ceiling despite all of the change. Dan talked a lot about that. I've got a lot of thoughts on that. And again, just what a turnaround from a really cruddy place to be in as a coach, as a player, as a fan. We know, and we're not in that place anymore, and it's so good. That's the side of me, to jump around a little bit, that forgives fans, whoever. I probably would have been there this time for rushing the field. Now, the goalposts, that was probably a bit too much. This is definitely the last time that we can do it, unless, God forbid, streaks are to continue elsewhere or something like that. I don't think I think the goalposts need to be safe in their location, unless you, I don't know, lose to Georgia this year, beat them at home next year, you're undefeated at that time, something like that, something big. Because, again, we just need to start, realizing that we've been there. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying it kind of needs to slow down big time until the next big thing happens, win a home playoff game, some of that stuff. Even at that point, you belong there, obviously. So I think it's good. I think it needs to be a while before it happens again. That's just me. That's just where I'm at after a win, even as big as this one was. The way it took place was, again, such a different trajectory than what we've grown accustomed to, but boy, it might be what we are now. Another scoreless half. Let me say this. At the time of the Arkansas first half shutout, you could have shown me Josh Heupel. You could have shown me third-string depth guys or just third-string players that don't play. Anyone in between. I'm mad at you. You were conservative. You were soft. You were terrible. You couldn't get it done. Okay? Move forward a week to Florida. And I've cooled off a lot on anyone not on the field, because it's at that point clear how much more it's execution than play calling, just to keep it simple on that aspect. Move forward another week, and my God, you drive the field early again, and it ends again in a fumble. I think either Sampson joked or someone joked that it was his turn to mess things up, and he did it. He fumbled off of a really good run, off of a run that we've not utilized, where we got the ball outside either by doing this or that. We've been so heavy inside zone, but the more we've moved away from that against Florida, the touchdown that was scored against Florida off of a counter, doing counter things, doing outside stretch, outside zone type things here. Only good things come from that, and it just has to be infused at all times. It has to be a part of this offense. Nico's legs, that's a big thing that I asked for following the Arkansas aftermath, and they continue to be used. They continue to be a weapon. They're a huge part of his game right now until the pass game clicks again, because it has clicked before, and it did click at times on Saturday. Until it clicks again, or maybe it's in its full form, rather than being a lot of young guys or guys that just haven't played a lot together, in terms of multiple seasons, things like that. His legs have to be a factor. That ball, and I'm going to talk, I'm probably just going to name the big plays because I don't know what more I can add than to just revisit them in general. But the ball that he has on the run to Thornton, my goodness, dude. The placement of the fade to Brazel in the end zone, dear Lord, dude. I mean, those are the ones where you see the talent that is in there. And, it was more of a 50-50 split in the Alabama game than it was probably in Arkansas and definitely against Florida, where we saw more overthrows, but we did still see drops against Florida, and we saw drops against Alabama, and we saw overthrows against Alabama. That click, I've been hesitant to believe when you see Cole Kublik, or you see, me and Dan, or you see anybody as plugged in as they are, whoever, when they say it's going to click, I've been hesitant. But Saturday night feels like all the proof that I could ever need. Just so many dudes schemed open or doing simple things and getting open. In fact, when Brew was overthrown out of, someone motioned down to the bottom of the screen, probably Squirrel still at that time, because I think it was first half. Could have been one of the, Brazel or Thornton. They motioned behind, so to speak, Brew to the bottom of the screen to the outside left. Brew is getting like a free release up the seam, and Nico overthrew that one. That, I feel like, based on who we've been, I saw that play coming. I saw it developing. I saw that happen similarly against Florida 2 years ago, and I think LSU 2 years ago, when Brew kind of splashed into production in this offense, as new as he was at that time. Kind of felt that coming, and we just aren't hitting them. But I can see more than ever that a click is possible, that the ceiling still can be high. At this point, you've got another bye week, and you might say to me, hey, the last bye week broke Tennessee on the offense, so can this one fix it? That's all I'm asking. While I'm on the topic, this kind of feels like a quarterback receiver group overall, when you factor in the entire team, that just didn't, I don't know if they just didn't spend enough time in the offseason or realize the amount of work and reps that you need to build some true chemistry. I don't know. And again, let's not glide past the fact that he's been hit way too many times. Some self-inflicted, but he's been hit way too many times. And the offensive line did take a big step on Saturday because there were less penalties, there were less hits, tackles for loss, sacks. His decision-making still looked like someone that's been sped up, that's been hit too much, and that's a factor. I'm not going to, discredit Nico and say that that's not a factor, because it is a factor. But it just looks like a group that, when we reach the offseason this year, and there's still a lot of special heights I think we can reach, but when it's all said and done, and every moment in between, they have to be together. They have to be thrown together. They have to be working together. They have to make sure that this is an isolated incident that we saw for a 3-week stretch in 2024. Hey, it helped cost us a game in Fayetteville, which is, again, a house of horrors. It is still Gainesville Northwest, all those things, but it has to become isolated and not become the norm. It looks kind of like a group that just didn't do enough together. And you've only lost one game as part of that stretch. It's still something you can absolutely learn from. I talked about a couple of times. You want to learn your lessons and wins. We've only had to learn a few lessons in one loss. So, and again, I think the steps are really positive out of that Arkansas debacle, with again, still scheming guys open, with now using Nico's legs more and more, with getting outside, albeit in a low sample size, more with the natural run game, or with the Sampson and running back game. Just more of it. That's all. Just want to see more of it. Just want to see it continue. Just want to still see Nico throw on the run and just absolutely take off, because what he did on the 30-ish yard scramble, where he had a couple Alabama defenders in a pretzel, especially early, with a pass fake around or past the line of scrimmage, and then a juke or a cut inside, that was nasty stuff. I text Dan at one point, probably around that time, and I said his takeoff when he goes to leave, a passing stance or his passing position in the pocket, or pocket central, his takeoff reminds me a little bit of Dobbs. Everything after that is different. Dobbs was also a heavy foot in the ground, try to cut you up type of guy. He was a great runner. I think he's still a better runner, obviously, than Nico is right now. But you can see the potential for that run game and for how deadly Nico is in modern football. You can see all that potential line up because he's athletic. His strides are about 15 yards apiece, it feels like sometimes when he takes off, because he's, again, such a unique build, such a tall but still athletic and fast quarterback. That just has to be used, okay? I go back, I'll say this probably one more time. The way that Milroe, and again, I'm not saying Nico is the runner that Milroe is, but the way that he did it against Georgia, you have to build everything into your plan against Georgia, whether they are the defense that showed up in Austin on Saturday night, whether they're the defense that they have been during their great run that they're continuing, it seems. All those, it doesn't matter what they are. You have to continue to move Nico, throw him on the run, get him outside, and just get him loose any chance you can. He's also, I think he's a step or two ahead, obviously, of, Dobbs would do all those things, and sometimes he wouldn't take a huge hit, but sometimes he would just get plastered. And Nico's not at least getting himself plastered when he takes off on these runs. He's doing a decent job of getting down. It was a little bit awkward on the scramble that I'm mentioning where he again pump faked around the line of scrimmage, but he's not letting himself be taken out of games or anything like that. And it was a really awkward one. I'm not going to miss the fact that there was a really awkward play that he almost got hurt on where he almost made a happy accident, fumbling that ball, backwards passing it to the running back on that play where he got hurt. And then you quickly see, how bad it could be if he's not in here. And obviously there's some extent in which Gaston is just Leroying it. I love that reference. I've seen it as well, where he's, Leroying it down the field. I'm going to take my shot. There ain't nothing you can do to stop me. When he came in, wasn't going to be sustainable. Wasn't going to be sustainable if Nico's not in this game and if he's not a part of our offense going forward, because he is the guy. There's really just not much question that he's the guy, and that the miss in our, the hitch in our giddy up is just between him and the receivers. And again, some parts of the offensive line when they probably let him get a little bit mentally fried there with the hits that he's taken in the early parts of the stretch. But again, he's our guy. We know that. There is no disputing that. And this team is just a team full of guys. Will Brooks, Dylan Sampson, Arion Carter, James Pierce. If I was able to record coming out, and I've got myself caught up on James Pierce now, but if I was going to record an episode coming off the Florida game, I would have said something along the lines of, Pierce is so special, and it is not just his God-given ability, his speed, his freaky athleticism. It's not just that. This is a guy who's obviously hungry. He's obviously hungry because of the limited playing time early parts of the year when the opponents were Kent State and Chattanooga, and we didn't need him, and now we're needing him because we need maximum from the defense. We need to harass quarterbacks especially when they're as good as Jalen Milroe has been. And this is a guy in the Florida game that forces a fumble on a quarterback sneak inside the 1 yard line. That's a difference between a guy who just has all the ability, has soared, spent much time at the top of the draft boards, and is still hungry enough to make a play like that happen. Pierce is hungry. He is ferocious. He is different than your average, and that's not an average classification of player. He is different than your average top of the draft board, top of the team talent. He's different than those guys. He's special. He's got a different motor, and he's finally being given the opportunities to make plays in the stat sheet at times. He's quarterback hurries. I mean, that's going to be the James Pierce stat of the year at the rate we're going. He's finally getting some sacks, finally getting some hits, and he's a special one. He is a really special one. But his group specifically, I want to talk about for a minute. On the final play where Brooks does pick off Milroe, you've got Joshua Josephs, just screaming towards Milroe. If he doesn't throw that pick, and I've not really seen anybody talk about this, if he doesn't get rid of that ball and throw that pick, he's about to get blindsided. And I mean, absolutely obliterated. There's going to be a really strong chance of a fumble, or again, Alabama's just in a terrible spot. They're not in 4th and 22 yet and having to go for it, but they're going to be in 2nd and 17 probably at best, 15 maybe. But they're going to be in a world of hurt if he doesn't throw that ball. Obviously, you'd take that if you're an Alabama fan or if you're on that team, because then you've still got the ball maybe, but there's a great chance that he loses the ball right there because Josephs is screaming around. Just talking about that group, though, Bailey, Jackson Moy, Omari Thomas, man, Omar Norman Lott. This group, and I don't want to leave anyone out of it when I talk about them, but this group is unbelievable. They're something else, man. Their effort is just it's hard to match because they're so well coached. They're so fast off the ball, but it's not like they're a one-trick pony. They're so strong off the ball. You know, the controversial fourth down where Alabama's receivers, you got Ryan Williams and probably Jeremy Bernard up there shooting fadeaway jump shots. In that moment, just again, they've got the strength, they've got the entire package to make a play like that close. A quarterback sneak. Look at the way the Eagles run the quarterback sneak, and I know that that's been their shtick, that's their thing, but that is a hard play to stop. And you've got the week before this group, notably James Pierce, forcing that fumble on a quarterback sneak at the goal line. There's no way that fourth down sneak was at least not review worthy. And I'll get to officiating in a minute. It is so broken, and it hurt both teams. It benefited both teams, but it is so broken. And again, you've got the entire package from this defensive line. This I don't remember if I've said if this has made it to the podcast yet, but they are the reason. And I know I've talked about creating separation when you're near the top when we lost to Arkansas, but they're the reason that you have to capitalize on teams, on moments, whether it be seasons, whatever it is. You have to capitalize when you have a group like this because I'm coming around to the fact that Rodney Garner, if anyone, you know, that maybe Banks takes a job and how differently we'd view that now if it happened. But the opportunity is going to be there because of, you know, behind the defensive line, you're just not going to lose much. You're not going to lose a ton, at least. Obviously, you know, a guy here, a guy there that have made plays. But defensive line, you're going to lose a lot. And it's going to be the top end of your talent. It's going to be depth guys. It's going to be the entire thing. Now, I'm coming around to the fact that when you add in transfers on this defense, like Jermod McCoy, my gosh, like Jackson Moy, like Omar Norman Lott, some of the hits that we've had on defense, Keenan Pili, he was a hit. We know that now. That you know, the future is not bleak. That there is still an opportunity. But again, when you've got a driving force like this defensive line, you have to capitalize on it. That's why the offensive click that I think is to come is so vital because you have to capitalize on, well, a chaotic year that feels like 2007, which is what we're in right now. You have to capitalize on Alabama being in some weird mode. Georgia, still not their entire full selves. Florida, we know what they are. And then Texas, you know, boy, I think they got exposed a bit on Saturday night. They got harassed. They had not given up many sacks, and they got demolished. Ewers and Arch Manning over there on the bench looking like they've seen ghosts, and they kind of had their own ghosts, I think. That's, again, all those things are why it's important to capitalize when you have a group like this, but the future is not bleak because I don't think Rodney Garner is a man who is looking to retire tomorrow. I think he is so vested in boosting young men, in coaching young men, and being a part of their lives, and he is just the absolute best at his position and doing that. So again, the future is not bleak, but it is so important to capitalize when you have a group like this. I am confident though that via the guys that are getting the ladder reps now, you know, Jordan Ross is down there, Caleb Herring's down there. There's guys across the position group that will be difference makers. It's just so vital to do it when you have a group like this one. I want to shift gears a little bit. I guess I want to go ahead and jump into kind of the identity conversation because, you know, we were so used to, like Dan talked about, lighting up the scoreboard. They put a drive together. The opposition puts a drive together. They hold the ball for a quarter of the game, you know, before we touch it. No big deal. You know, we're going to light up that scoreboard. That scoreboard is going to be shooting out sparks at the just maybe halftime because we're going to abuse it so bad because we're going to get points up so bad. And also, I want to acknowledge that the chance was there for 40 points against Florida and Alabama. Just saying, it was there. And that's part of the click. That's part of the click that we need. We know that. But this is a different identity now, y'all. Like, this team does not panic. If they're down 7, 10, or whatever to 0 at half, they don't panic. They know that they're good